It is the night from June 29th to 30th, 1942. In a dimly lit apartment at 12 Rue de Namur in Brussels, Belgium, German communist Johann Wenzel is operating a portable long-range radio transmitter. He is sending a coded message to his Soviet spy lords in Moscow. Suddenly, the door bursts open, kicked in, bam! Wenzel scrambles to get out of the window and away. Agents of the German Funkabwehr, radio counterintelligence, police, and Luftwaffe men storm into the apartment. Wenzel is now out and on the roof. He starts running over the rooftops, but the Nazi operatives are at his heels. He fires shots with his pistol at his pursuers, forcing them to take cover, and then Wenzel disappears into the night. Behind him, in the apartment, he has left a treasure trove of information that will now allow the Nazi German counter-espionage to gain the upper hand in a spy versus spy game between Nazi and communist spies that has been going on for years. I'm Astrid Deinhard. This is a World War II in real-time Spies and Ties episode. Today, about the Soviet spies network, the Rote Kapelle, the Red Orchestra. A few days after Wenzel's narrow escape, Captain Harry Pieper of the Funkabwehr has several of the decoded written messages that Wenzel had already transmitted in his hand. It is highly troubling news for the Nazis. Among the messages that the Soviets have received since several weeks are the detailed plans for the counter-offensive that has just begun on the Eastern Front. Fall Blau, or Case Blue. Ouch. Pieper throws himself in a car and drives at top speed towards Berlin to see his boss's boss, head of the Abwehr and double agent Admiral Wilhelm Canaris. Even if he would probably like to, Canaris just can't keep it from the rest of the German military leadership and get away with it. Canaris immediately meets with Wilhelm Kyhle, Commander-in-Chief of the OKW, das Oberkommando der Wehrmacht. Kyhle has a problem. The plan is already in motion since 2 days. What can he do? It doesn't really matter. Because in Moscow, Stalin, like with Barbarossa, didn't believe the intelligence, not even after it's confirmed by actual originals of the German plans captured from the plane crash, not even after it's confirmed by actual originals of the German planes captured from a plane crash on the same day as the raid on Wenzel's apartment. In fact, as you will see in Indy's episode, Stalin doesn't even believe that the Germans are launching a big offensive after it has already begun. Oh, Comrade Vissarionovich, who the hell has to talk to you in your dreams so you finally believe that when the Nazis say they're coming for a visit, they're coming for a visit. But the Nazis don't know that Stalin still chooses not to know, but they have lost hope of holding on to the element of surprise as Fall Blau proceeds. But what they can hope for is to finally put a stop to the stream of radio messages going out to Moscow from Germany, Belgium, and France, and many other parts of Western Europe. You see, the Soviet Union have been setting up spy rings equipped with high-tech radio equipment of the latest kind all over Europe since more than 6 years by now. In 1936, they sent one of their top agents, Leopold Trepper, to France to create a Europe-wide network of small, diverse spy cells only truly connected via radio to the spider in the web. Trepper, the puppet master, the silent man behind the curtain. Literally, the silent man. Although Trepper speaks several European languages, he is a man of very, very few words, the archetypical spy type. But he's also known to be able to judge someone's character and potential just by listening to them for a minute or two. Born in the Polish part of Austria-Hungary in 1904, is one of 10 children of a Jewish traveling salesman for farm equipment. He has lived in Poland, Soviet Russia, Soviet Ukraine, France, Belgium, and British Palestine. Already since he was a teenager and became enamored with Bolshevism, he has been active for a variety of extreme left-wing political causes, including operation in the social Zionist organization Hashemeh Hazir in Palestine. Since 1930, he is a Red Army intelligence operative. To fund his operations and create a cover story, he founds the Foreign Excellent Raincoat Company in 1937. I'm not joking. That's the name of the company. Okay, so as silly as the name is, a group of Belgian politicians sympathetic to the Bolshevik cause lend their name to the organization by being on their board or serving as strawmen for its operations. So, it looks really important. But it's actually not just a sham. They really do make excellent raincoats, so much that they will eventually be selling excellent raincoats even to the Wehrmacht. In all, Trapper sets up 7 clandestine operations of this kind. In March 1941, when the raincoat company is threatened by the Germans because one of his frontmen is Jewish, Trapper, together with another Soviet agent, Antony Gurevich, aka Sokolov, fold the operations into a new import-export company in Brussels called Zemexco. The import-export is a smart thing. That way they have to have contact to other countries and have people working in other countries. They even get an official license to operate international telephone and telefax lines by the German occupiers in Belgium. Not always so smart, those Nazis, right? Anyway, although Gurevich is more or less Trapper's subordinate, he also maintains to be the spider in his own network, reporting directly to Moscow on his own. In fact, the two don't really gel together. They don't like each other at all. But Stalin says, and good comrades do, as Stalin says, so together they expand the network. Now, at war with Germany, the Soviets need to step up their spy game even more. In September 1941, Trapper gets into touch with Henry Robinson, a Belgian Comintern member, and his network is integrated into Trapper's. But not all of their prospective agents are so easily persuaded. On October 18, 1941, on orders from Moscow, Trapper sends Gurevich to Berlin to approach the resistant cells of Arvid and Mildred Harnack and the one around Luftwaffe officer Harro Schulze-Boysen, as well as any other German resistance cells they can find, to once and for all recruit all of them for the Soviet cause and make them Soviet agents under Moscow's leadership. Spartacus already told us about what the Harnacks and Schulze-Boysen are up to in a video about the German resistance. There is a link in the description if you haven't seen it. Look at it. In any case, these groups, although some of them are left-leaning, perhaps even communists, are not really that interested in being spies controlled from Moscow, but they have often been passing on information that could damage the Nazis already before Germany attacked the USSR. Like the 2 messages from June 13th, 1941 from Schulze-Boysen relayed through communist activist and a radio operator in Trapper's network, Hans Coppi. Here he is. The first message detailed vital information on the Luftwaffe assembling planes on the German and Hungarian eastern border. And message 2, hold on to your shorts. The Nazis are preparing an invasion of the Soviet Union. Bam. Sounds familiar? Yes. Same message that Richard Sorge, our spy friends Sam Edison Woods and Erwin Respondek, and many more had already sent to try to get Stalin to prepare. And as we already know, Uncle Joe says niet, 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 because in early June 41, Joseph still believes in his romance with Adolf. And another report is filed in the wastebreaker basket for fake news or phishing shenanigans orchestrated by the Brits. Actually, he should have read a book that was already written in 41, Don't Do Business with Hitler, by the American diplomat Douglas Miller, who worked at the US Embassy in Berlin for 6 years. Here it is. But back to our Soviet spy rings. So, Gurevich makes the way to Berlin and gets in touch with Hanax and Schulze-Boysen. Probably meets them in a bar, orders one drink after the other. He gives them the exciting news that 5 new Soviet agents will be dropped into Germany by parachute to help them set up a new high-tech radio network and office until that is done to reach Moscow by sending a courier to his transmission station in Brussels. That sounds great, guys, right? It doesn't quite work the way he hoped. The Germans' resistance groups prefer to stay independent. They do agree to continue sending information when they have any. And information they send, lots of it. Gurevich brings back so much intel that he spends 6 days in a row transmitting to Moscow. As we will see, that's a big mistake. In any case, Trapper needs more hands on deck. Well, no hands on radio transmitters to make sure that the information keeps on coming out. So, Moscow orders Trapper to get in touch with another Soviet spy. There's quite a lot of Soviet spies around, it seems, right? Konstantin Jefremov, who also runs an independent but extensive spy and radio network in Belgium and in the Netherlands. And yet another network is integrated into the folds of the foreign excellent raincoat company, now Mexico. And this is how our friend running across the roof from the opening of the episode, Johann Wenzel, codename Professor, or Hermann, enters the story. He's working for Jefremov. Well, now, like everyone else, it seems he's working for Trapper. So, by early 42, Trapper, who operates under a slew of code names but is mostly known as either the Big Boss or Otto, like Habsburg, has become Stalin's most important spy master. He's running hundreds of employed professional spies, and he has recruited communist-friendly resistant members all over occupied territory and inside the German Reich itself. His tentacles reach all the way from the governments of occupied Belgium and France into the very heart of the Wehrmacht in Berlin. In Germany, even several of the resistance circles that are not communists are working for him and the Western allies at the same time. He's equipped dozens of agents with the secret little radios, and they're busy tapping their encoded intelligence messages as often as they can without getting caught. But some do get caught. Gurevich's 6 days message spree is captured and located by the Nazis, and in December 41, they descend on his position. 2 of his assistants are arrested, but Gurevich gets away with the transmitter and his papers. Both his and Trapper's covers are blown, and they have to get into hiding. But Gurevich is spooked, and he grows despondent and defeatist as spring approaches. He is no longer transmitting any messages, claiming that his radio is broken. When Trapper sends a man over to have a look at it and concludes that the radio is fine, Trapper decides to send Gurevich to Marseille, France, to establish a new branch of Simexco instead. Jevrimov now gets all of Gurevich's assets and takes over the communication with Schulze-Boysen and the Harnags. The SS, Sicherheitspolizei SIPO, will conclude that their messages include things like: first, the strength of the German Air Force at the beginning of the war with the Soviet Union. Second, the monthly production of the aviation industry in the period June-July 41. Third, the fuel situation in Germany. Fourth, plans for the planned German attack on Maykop in Caucasus. 5. The location of German headquarters. 6. Serial production of aircraft in occupied areas. 7. The production and storage of material for chemical warfare in Germany. 8. The capture of a Russian codebook in Petsamo. 9. The losses of German parachutes on Crete. Okay, now, Gurevich's excuse that the radio wasn't working is not so strange. High-tech radio equipment in the 40s from the Soviet Union is not exactly what we understand as high-tech in 2021. The operators hate the Soviet hardware. Ugh. It's often faulty already when delivered, and when fixed, it breaks down again and again, cutting them off over and over. The solution is built into Trapper's organization, though, by having so many cells that they can relay messages to each other if the radio doesn't work, and someone will always be able to tap a message to the central point in Brussels so that it can then be relayed to Moscow. But all of this creates a massive amount of radio traffic. And that will soon be their downfall. See, already in July 28th, 41, Abwehrstelle 3F in Belgium had intercepted the first radio message and soon started hearing more and more sequences of the long and short beeps that were clearly not their own. It didn't take long to conclude that it was traffic meant for Moscow. In spy slang, at that time, the term for such radio operators is a pianist. Because, well, keying like a telegrapher. There's clearly a lot of these pianists playing songs for Moscow. A whole orchestra, in fact. And that is how Trapper's network earns the codename Rote Kapelle, or Red Orchestra, with the Nazi German Counter-Espionage. Anyway, the Funkabwehr obviously starts trying to find the sources, but in 41-42, the only way they can locate them is by triangulation. That is using 3 or more points of interception in determining in which direction it was received from. If the intersection points are spread out enough, you can draw a line towards the source and where these lines intersect. Bingo. And that's where it's coming from. But the messages are usually relatively short and it's not easy to predict when they will be sent next. The best way to catch them out is if they repeatedly broadcast from the same place, like Gurevich did. And that exactly is also Wenzel's mistake. He has become the major relay point in the network. So loads of messages to send. In June, his transmissions are caught in stations in Nuremberg, Augsburg, and Brest simultaneously, and they can pinpoint the rough location. To get it narrowed down to one house, they have to be there and measure signals more closely, though. That is what they have done by the night of June 30th, 42. They silently close down the Rue de Namur. Then they enter the building, but as we saw, Wenzel escapes. The codebooks he leaves behind enables them to crack loads of old messages as well. And they mention 3 addresses in Berlin, including our friends, the Harnacks and the Schulze-Boysen. On July 16th, they are put under secret surveillance of the Gestapo. On July 20th, Wenzel is captured. He's handed over to the SS Sicherheitsdienst, the SS Intelligence Services, under torture. He gives up several names and confirms the roles of the German resistant members. Broken by torture, he also agrees to start working as a double agent to help the SS transmit false reports to Moscow. Now comes the very sad part of my report. Horst Heilmann, a resistance member working as a cryptographer at the OKA cipher section, tries to call Schulze-Boysen and warn him that he is under surveillance. But Schulze-Boysen only gets a message to call back. He does. But one of Heilmann's superiors answers the phone. The game is up. Schulze-Boysen is arrested in his Luftwaffe office. Shortly after that, multiple members of the Harnack network are arrested as well. Then Schulze-Boysen's wife, Libertas, is captured. She's not tortured, but unwittingly gives the Gestapo many more names by confiding in a Gestapo secretary who she thinks is a friend. On December 19th, 11 people are sentenced to death. On December 22nd, Haro and Libertas Schulze-Boysen, Arvid and Mildred Harnack, Hans Koppi, and 8 other members are executed. The men are hanged and the women are beheaded by the guillotine. Many more will be arrested and executed in the month to come, effectively eradicating the German resistance network around Harnack and Schulze-Boysen. What hasn't been eradicated is Trepper's network. Sure, they're in hiding and it's a hard blow, but most of them are still out there. But now the Germans know exactly who they are. As long as they were being hunted by the Abwehr, there was still a chance that Canaris and his friends could do something to help. In August, that changes as the SS take over the hunt for the Soviet spy rings and form the Sonderkommission Rote Kapelle under the direction of SS Obersturmbannführer Friedrich Panzinger. Here he is, an unusually terrible man, even when compared to other Nazis. And yet, this spy versus spy combat is far from over, as we shall see in our next episode on the Rote Kapelle, when double agents triple-cross each other. Stories of sex, seduction, love, and betrayal become an integral part of the spying, and the conflict between Trepper and Gurevich deepens as they are forced to work for the Germans. Or maybe not. It's a fascinating story, I promise. The Germans also have an extensive spy network of their own, including in South America. You can watch our entertaining episode on Operation Bolivar right here. Join the Time Ghost Army so we can continue making interesting and important content. Subscribe, like, ring that bell, and all that. Okay, auf Wiedersehen. See you next time, darlings.